Hi everyone, I'm happy to be here. I'm absolutely delighted. I've been here since this morning and listened in to some of the sessions. My Finnish is absolutely terrible, so I've been able to pick out quite a good things from the English ones. And from the Finnish ones, I've read the slide. I've tried my best with Google Translate, but I'm a bit behind. So I can't wait for real-time translation to be more widely available. But in essence, you've had a great day. I mean, from what I can tell, you've been hearing everything about capturing the digital advantage, listening from others in the industry on AI. I mean, I listened to one of the colleagues here talking about some of the, what can I say, challenges in AI or the less goodwill inventions. I mean, we heard about autonomous weapons. That's quite something, to say the least. But what I will do here today is I'll speak to you on a similar topic, because what we've heard is it's all about innovation. And innovation is nothing new, right? It's been following us. It's part of what we are as humans. I mean, it's been part of when we created the first car, when we invented fire, for that sake, to some extent. But what's really, really interesting today is that it's so fast-paced. It's moving so quickly. And the magnitude of disruption is just absolutely huge. So what we're doing at Cisco is that we're in this industry, and it changes constantly. I was just telling, I've been with Cisco for 15 years, and what I did 15 years ago is no longer relevant. It's changing so fast. So we're spending a lot of time in Cisco to look at how things are changing, how the industry is being disrupted. Because it's important for us to understand how we should change as a company, but also how we can support our customers. So I'll share with you some of the learnings that we've had from this experience, both from how do we work? I mean, how do you make decisions? How should the business strategy evolve going forward to be able to thrive in this digital disruption? But also, how should we think in this room to some extent? How can we support the business and the line of business? How do we ensure that IT not only aligns with the line of business, but the IT guides the line of business to be able to be successful going forward? And some of the choices that we need to be considered about when we choose the platforms. So what we've done, if we look at Cisco here, we've been studying this for years. And one of the outcomes, or how we presented this, is what we call the digital vortex. It sounds quite fancy to some extent, right? And then a vortex is just as simple, it's a whirl. It's just when you're in the tub, in the bathtub, and you drain the water, it's whirling down, right? And the closer you are to the center, the quicker it goes. A more destructive version of a vortex is a tornado. It's moving quickly. The closer you are to the center, the quicker it goes, but it's also quite destructive. And where we see digital transformation and digital disruption is quite similar to this. And it's really three ways. Again, the closer to the center you are as a business or as a public sector institution, as an industry, is the more your business can be digitized and the quicker it goes. So that's one. The second one is the unbundling or the destruction kind of way. Our industries are being blended and merged. A player in one industry might not be playing that industry tomorrow. Look at someone like Amazon or Apple. In what industry are they playing now? Look at Apple. They started selling computer hardware. Are they in that business today? Well, yeah, but they might also be in the cell phone business, they're in the software business, they're in the music business. And this is changing so quickly. And this is something that's important for us to be aware of. And the last one is also a bit of chaos. Even if you're on the outside of the vortex today, you may quickly be pulled in and disrupted before you know it. And when we talk about digital disruption or digital transformation, it sometimes feels like, well, it's only relevant if you're a private sector company, if you're an enterprise customer. But that's not really it. We see it as relevant in public sector. So if you're a private enterprise, your role is to make profit. That's the way it is, right? But if you're in the public sector, your role is to serve your citizens and to make the best out of the tax money that you have. And we see the same here. If we're not up to date, public sector services are heavily being disrupted by digital disruptors. Take, for example, well, to some extent, Bitcoin. That has drastically disrupted sovereign currencies in no time. We have a player like the Khan Academy, if you heard of it. It's an online platform whose mission is to train and educate people around the globe for free. They have millions of people attending their platform and learning, and it's operated by 80 people. So if we have a disruptor coming in and doing something cheaper, smarter, and getting a better experience than the public services, then we're not doing things right, and we risk being irrelevant. So I really want to emphasize this, because this is something that we tend to forget. Digital disruption is as relevant if you're in the private sector as you are in the public sector. So what we look at here, we've done this for quite a few years, and this is the vortex here. This is the world if you're in the pool or in the tornado, or however you want to put it. So here, the closer to the center is where things are moving quickly. So the number one that being disrupted today is media. And that's pretty obvious, right? I mean, look at media broadcasting, look at magazine, look at journalism, and the players such as Netflix and so on. It's drastically changing the market. But then going up, we see the telco business, we see tech products and services, what many of us are operating in today. But we're also moving further up, we see financial services. This has gone down. We publish this regularly, and when I last saw this one, financial services, it was much further up. We see fintech disruptors rapidly changing the business, and will even more within a few years. And I mentioned the vortex is a bit chaotic. You don't really know, and you can't really expect what's going to be where. I mean, media, for example, wasn't at the top one, wasn't the most disrupted one a few years ago, and it definitely is now. So things are moving quickly. And if we would have discussed this, say, 10 years ago, who would have assumed that hospitality and the taxi business would have been one of the first ones to be disrupted? And now everyone knows about Airbnb and Uber. It's probably the most, well, a bit more boring examples of digital disruptions, because we speak so much about them, and we always take it for granted. And why I'm showing this is because it's relevant for all of us to plan our strategy going forward. So what we learned from looking at this is that 4 out of 10 of the market leaders will be displaced. They won't be here anymore. And the time for this to happen is 3 years. And when you look at these things, I remember when I read the report the first time, like, yeah, okay, 3 years, that's a long time. But if we look at disruption, how it's happened in the past, 3 years is not a lot. Take one of the most obvious examples of digital, probably one of the first examples of digital disruption, Kodak. The camera and the filmmaker. I think 1976 or early 1980s, they had 90% market share. They invented the digital camera. Well, a guy in their research department did. They pitched it to the management, who thought, maybe this is not a good thing. Why should we disrupt ourselves? We're the market leader. This guy got the office in the basement and really did not advance much further in his career. 10 years later, someone else launched the digital camera. And 20 years after that, Kodak, I think they were at 7% market share. And in 2012, Chapter 11, no more. So if we look at the time for disruption, in this case, it was from when the digital camera was released to when they went out of business. That was 20 years. Now it's 3. So we need to start considering this, no matter in which industry we are. And what's really, really interesting, and when we speak to different government institutions and enterprises around the world is that, well, 40% more or less view it as an actual and existential threat. But what's really, really worrying is that only a third is actually doing something to respond to it. Okay, I can show the stats. What does it mean? So what do? We talk about digital transformation, digital disruption, and to some extent, are they only nice words? What does it really mean? And I've been visiting so many companies that say, we're going to go into innovation, we're going to go disrupt ourselves. And the first thing they do is to redecorate the office. They get beanbags, they get football tables, they replicate everything about the startup culture. You know, they have Nerf guns and free beer. Okay, nothing bad about that, that's all nice. But what it really means is that sometimes we do all these nice design thinking workshops, remodel the office, and sometimes it's a bit of a cosmetic fix. And we tend to, well, to some extent, fool ourselves that we're really looking into it. So what should we do? And this is something that and this is why we did this analysis, right? To learn from the digital disruptors out there, because we need to disrupt ourselves, our market, and others. So we've seen 3 forms of value. And not looking now at the technology you leverage to do the disruption, but really the business models. So we looked across several digital disruptors during many, many, many years, right? To see what is there? Why have they become successful? And the first one is cost value. It's pretty obvious, right? If you can do something by leveraging digital technologies and make it cheaper, customers will like it. Yeah, that's pretty much one of the, I wouldn't say it's the easiest one, but it's pretty clear. But what's also quite interesting is to see where we see players leveraging price transparency. Again, take someone like Uber. Yes, they're cheaper, but it's also quite transparent. For the first time, you can actually book a cab ride and see how much it is. We see consumption-based pricing growing exponentially, and there's a new demand for subscription-based services. I heard recently about Rolls-Royce, not the car, but the actual airplane engine. They're selling an airplane engine as a service, consumption-based. That's probably not the first industry where we would think that would happen, but they're really moving into focusing on the values that you can offer. The second one, and I think that's more of that really made a difference when we talk about digital transformation and disruption, is the experience that you offer to your customers. If you can get a better experience from using a service, that makes all the difference, whether it's digital or not. Take someone like Starbucks, for example. Why are we paying €5 for a cup of coffee that tastes the same like the one across the street? It's the experience. And they really succeeded with that. And actually, it's quite interesting to see. We talk a lot about customer experience. And why are we doing that? We can say we have the best product or the lowest price. But there's a lot of research going into this, and the Walker Institute says here that already next year, the customer experience, so the experience your customer has, whether you're a paying customer or whether you're a citizen in a city or in a country or a healthcare patient, that is much more, the experience that individual has is more important than the price or the actual product for the brand. So hence, we see a lot of need to disrupt here. We can say we have the best product. It doesn't matter if the experience is not there. And the third one is probably one of the new ones. We see the platform value. And it's really about networking value to some extent, right? It's take a platform like Twitter or Facebook or Amazon and so on, and the value that you bring is tightly connected to how many other clients and customers are connected to it. And the Apple system, the Apple iOS, the apps, for example, is an excellent system here. So they offer a platform, and the more apps that are available on that platform, the more valuable it becomes for the consumer. And the reason why I bring this up, right, is It's not because of the technology that's behind it, but it's the value that it brings to the consumer. So these are, and in fact, 15 different business models that we've seen from studies, these digital disruptors, that has been in common for them to disrupt your industry, whether you're in healthcare, or you're in the taxi business, or you're in hospitality. It's the same business models that we're leveraging. And there's a lot of money going into this. I mean, this year, enterprises, now we're only looking at private sector enterprises, will spend $1.2 trillion into developing or managing digital businesses. And these are just so many zeros that to some extent it doesn't mean anything. I'm one of these sort of individuals that says if it's above 1,000 euros or 100 euros, it's difficult to comprehend, right? How much money is this? But to put it in perspective, $1.2 trillion is if we combine the GDP of Finland and Sweden and Norway into one. That's the same amount of money that is now being invested only this year into developing digital business. Whether it's successful or not, that's a question. And I think it's so important to not focus. Sometimes we focus too much on digital. If it's connected, it's great. If it's digital, it's amazing. We have an app for it. Well, does it provide value? Does it provide value to the end customer? So I've been with Cisco for a long time, and we speak a lot about Internet of Things and connecting things. So a bit of a hobby of mine is to look around and see cool things that we can connect to the internet. Everything from, you can connect a cow and monitor how that cow is feeling, which is great for a farmer to some extent. And that's actually one of the good cases. But I also come across the not so very good ones, which makes us into this abbreviation. And it stands for, well, the Internet of Useless Things. And when we speak about value, sometimes it's a bit refreshing to have a look at those that are not too valuable out there. So we can spend the entire day. The internet is fantastic, right? You Google this and you can find so much stuff. But the first one is this. Meet the connected toaster. This is a toaster. Well, I make toast every morning. I put in the bread, I press the button, I wait, 2 minutes? And I make my coffee and I walk around in the kitchen. But this toaster, this one is connected to the cloud. It will send you a text when your toast is ready. Yay! Which is, well, if you sort of leave the house, that might be good, but I tend to be in the kitchen. And the price, the cost value of this toaster, this is 100 euros. I think I paid 9 for mine. And I sort of see, I'm not sure about the value of this one. Another one, I think this is a prototype. This, meet the fit spoon. Here, I feel like I'm in a car, car fair. Here we have taken a spoon, we've added AI, we've connected it to the cloud, we're leveraging motion technologies, which sounds really cool, right? But what we're doing, and what it does, is that it measures how you eat and how quickly you eat. So if you eat too quickly, I have young children, I'm always stressed, I eat really quickly. So if I do, that happens. It opens up, so you displace the contents. You won't eat too quickly. Well, and the effect of that is, well, it'll take you longer to eat, might be good for your sort of general health. You'll make a mess. And, well, I'm not sure if you can buy this one. I found it at a place for weird prototypes. But again, it's definitely digital. Well, it's sort of transformation, but does it provide value? And I mean, jokes aside, we can look at these forever, but it's quite interesting to have that in mind. Just because we digitize something doesn't mean that it's absolutely valuable or that it provides value to your end customers or your stakeholders. So we looked at the values previously, but then it's so how do we get there? And when we analyzed all these companies that truly drove digital disruption, was the ability to be agile as a company. And if you're a startup of 3 people, you are quite agile, right? That's the only thing you do. But we need to reinvent ourselves. Whether you're a public sector institution, a large enterprise, or a mid-sized company, it doesn't matter. So let's learn. And we saw 3 things that made these digital disruptors being able to do what they do. So the first one, hyper-awareness. It's quite obvious, right? If you operate in a market, you must understand what's going on. You must be able to learn the environment you operate in to take the right decisions. But it may also be, do you actually know what your customers are doing? If you're in retail, do you know how your customers behave in your stores or online or wherever your point of sale is? Do you know what is going on? And do you get the data to be able to truly be hyper-aware? The second one is around informed decision-making. So we have the data, we know the business, we can see a trend is shifting. We have this new upcomer here that's releasing this new disruptive business model. Let's have a look at that and let's respond. But then also, do we have the right information to make a decision? Do we have the right tools to help us? We spoke, some of our colleagues here spoke earlier about AI. That's fantastic. We can get support to make the right decisions, assuming we have the right data. And then last, execution, fast execution. I said the time to market, the time to disruption is 3 years. We can be as aware as we want, and we can have the best business idea. But if we take too long to launch it and to take it to market, it may be too late. So in effect, it's a combination of all these 3. And it's really easy to just stand here with a model, right? Do this. So let's just have a look at a few examples that we see this happening. So the first one is the port of Rotterdam. I don't know if you've heard of it before. We work very much with them. And it's quite interesting, right? Because they get a lot of stuff. They get 8,000 containers every day moving into the harbor that they need to have a look at. Because all kinds of things come into a harbor. So what they do is that they X-ray them, and then they analyze the picture. That is done by a person, and it takes approximately 10 minutes. That's a lot. And that was one of the limiting factors for them. That was a serious business challenge. They saw they will not be able to compete because this is one of the factors that's pulling them down. So what they did is that they partnered with the university and leveraged AI here to really, you took the X-rays and you had it analyzed, and the X-rays were read by artificial intelligence, and they took it down to 3.5 seconds, which is quite amazing. And it's really down to them to be fully aware of what's going on and the challenges. And a challenge might seem a bit not huge, right? How long it takes to scan a container. But it made all the difference for them to be able to execute. The next one that I quite like is from the public sector. It's a city. It's the city of Boston, actually. And one of the tasks for public service is to make sure our citizens are safe. Here, it's about ensuring that we can go to the restaurant without getting food poisoning, which is quite nice, right? But normally, you don't have an army of inspectors. And you have a lot of restaurants out there you need to have a look at. So what they did is they actually made a challenge, and they opened up for innovation, and someone submitted code to say, well, how about we correlate Yelp reviews? So people say this food is terrible with our historic reviews. And you can then say, you get a better decision-making data to say, okay, these 20 restaurants, something is going on there. You might want to have a look at those first. And it seems pretty basic, right? But they didn't do this in the past. And in the end, they were managed to find 25% more of the restaurants where they needed to make something, right? Needed to help them to improve their environment so we didn't food poison half of Boston. And then the third one is on fast execution. You can have a fantastic idea, but if you cannot take it to market quick enough, then what is it? So this is, I mean, it's a huge global company. All of us know them. It's coffee. Coffee is personally very important for me in the morning. If I go to buy a coffee and there's a huge line, I just go to the one that has the shortest line. It's that important. And they realize that they lose a lot of sale. Okay, fine. What do? So line and anxiety, which what it was called. So they released an app in which you could buy your coffee in advance and basically just go pick it up. So they realized this was an issue in 2014. They implemented the app in less than a year and really changed the way that they would charge for their services in a year. And, well, a year and a half later, nearly a third of all their sales went through this app, which I think is fast execution, especially if you look at a company that has almost 23,000 stores. They could have said this was a great idea if IT said, well, we can't do that, or we don't have the security ready for that. It would have been dead. They couldn't have done anything. So really, and the reason why I'm showing this is, okay, so what do we do about this? I spent time talking here to you in the past sort of 25, 30 minutes about how we view the digital vortex, how all the industries are transforming. And the common denominators for the digital disruptors are not the technology they leverage, but the value they bring. And the second of all is how we get there is to be able to develop that digital business agility, to be able to do this, be hyper-aware, be able to take informed decisions and execute fast. So the people here, for us in the room, we have a huge responsibility here, or an opportunity, to be able to support the line of business, and no matter what industry you are, to do this. So for us at Cisco, we spent, and the reason why we do all these research and we spend all this time and effort and money to look at this and learn, is that we need to change as well. We need to be able to support you take this role. Not about receiving the order, right, from line of business, execute that, but to align and actually guide the line of business. Because we know what's going on and we know what can be done. So we look at the 4 things that we prioritize. It's about creating what we call a secure, intelligent platform for digital business. It's about having that foundation, getting the data to take that decision, and being able to take our whatever idea it is to market quickly. Because in all honesty, we don't know what idea that will be in a few years. And if we wait for the idea and get ready after, those 3 years are going to come and bite us. So if we look at this, so first of all, we think applications, right? We focus a lot on reimagining your applications. If you're a digital business, your app is, to some extent, your business. For many, it's the interface to your customers. We need to ensure that it runs smoothly, it's up to date, and that you can gain all the intelligence for it. And this is one of the reasons why we've been working with the likes of Dynamics within Cisco, for example. It's the one reason why we brought them in, is to be able to get that full view. And the second is very close to my heart, because I've been spending many, many years in cybersecurity, is secure the data. If you do not have a secure platform, you can ignore what I said the past 25 minutes. You will not be able to do it. It just doesn't work. You're going to stop there. You'll have the best idea, you'll have a great platform. If it's not secure, sorry, go back to the drawing board. And we need to rethink it. It strikes me as very, very interesting still. It's a very fragmented market still. We're very much focusing on best in breed and endpoint protection or cloud protection or a firewall here. But it needs to be all across. The identity is now the new perimeter. It doesn't matter where your employees or your customers are, they need to be protected. And when something happens, and when, it's not if, we need to be able to detect it quickly and remediate. That's not a discussion. It's sort of, we can't just say, we're protected, we'll be fine. No. It's about seeing it and acting as quickly as possible. And the third one is about transforming infrastructure. We have, if you know us, we've been speaking a lot in the past years about software-defined, whether it's in the data center or it's in the access. It doesn't matter. But the focus is twofold, right? First of all, it's about taking time to market. It's about automation, the fast execution piece. If you have something you want to take to your customers, it has to happen quickly. And if the network and the platform is not ready to do that, that will be a barrier to success. But it will also be from context, knowing what's in the network. That's a source, that's basically gold that we're not using yet. We have so much information about our students or our customers and how they're acting and how they're moving. How can we leverage that in a secure and confident way to make better decisions? So it's both from executing whatever decisions we want to make, but also gaining access and gaining learning from the data that is in the network. So there's a major change happening in how we build networks and how we perceive it. And that's also why it's really nice to be here today, because I know that Elisa have just recently launched a new service for intelligent networks. And I was asked by my colleagues to pronounce this in Finnish. And the Elukas Verkko? Yeah? Okay. No, but the purpose is, it's not about my poor pronunciation. But it's truly about this, to be able to create that platform for you, to be able to harness information from the network, to get the data to be hyper-aware, to take those decisions and to execute faster. And it's really, I saw the stats from Gartner previously, and they say by 2022, 70% of all the enterprises will deem the network absolute fundamental for your digital success. For us, this is, we're a bit biased, I guess, but for us, this has been important all along. But what's really interesting is just a few years ago, this was 25%. And if we see how digital innovation has happened, a few years ago said, I'm a digital enterprise, we have an app. Okay. And if anything has stuck from what I told you in the past 30 minutes, it's more than that. It's about having that platform to be able to gain the data, make that decision, and execute faster. And the third one is your people. We all know that. It's not the technology, it's the people who's our competitive advantage. So first of all, there's a lot of focus on training. The skills now, the midlife of a skill, if you learn a skill, it'll be irrelevant in between 5 to 10 years. If you're in technology, if you're in programming, it's like 18 months. So we have to continuously develop and train our teams. And also to be able to rethink things. You'll have members of your team who are on a different paths or different parts of the journey in terms of skills. We need to concentrate and think in a new way of how to collaborate. So this is how we're thinking, right? This is the entire basis of how we develop things, how we go to market, and how we want to help the enterprises. And it's not really new. It's not something we came up with 2 months ago or last spring, but it's been there all along. I mean, it's why we do things. It's why we evolve and focus and talk a lot about everything from software-defined access to SD-WAN, why we have acquired companies like App Dynamics, for example, or see an increased focus on security. Cisco DevNet, for example, is something you should really have a look at if you don't know it. And it's all about developing programmability skills to be able to create value and create your own intellectual property on top of the platform. And in essence, creating that digital business, right? So what we want to be doing, if you don't know, is to really create that multi-domain architecture that connects if you're a user, no matter the device, no matter the data, no matter the application into one platform. Because if we want to be able to truly act as a digital enterprise and truly develop that business agility, we need to have access, and we need to have one platform and one strategy in which we'll build. And it's one thing hearing it from us, right? But my favorite quote from one of my favorite engineers is literally this. It says, "Do not build without good foundations." If no one knows who it is, he's a bit dated, right? I'm not sure, but maybe he was the first digital disruptor to some extent. And this guy is Leonardo da Vinci. And it's still valid. We can run as fast as we want, and the world is moving faster. But we need to ensure that we do our homework and we'll build the right foundation to be able to change things. So to summarize, I mean, we spent 35 minutes together. It's a lot of talking. But there are sort of 4 takeaways I want you to leave you with. You heard this today. Disruption is a fact. It's there. It can be something bad, looking at autonomous weapons. I'm not sure that's a good thing. But it can also be something that's fantastic. I mean, we see innovation every day. And again, we can spend the entire day just talking about examples and great examples about digital innovation. But all through, what we do is to please always focus on the value it brings. Because the technology is fantastic. But if it doesn't provide value, we will all end up in the IOUT department, and we don't want to be there. And to succeed, think about how you can build that secure, intelligent platform to develop that digital business agility and help your colleagues, the line of business, no matter what industry you're in, partner with them, lead them the way. Because this is key if we want to be around in 3 years. And find partners that can help you drive innovation. Because if we do this right, it's amazing. We can go from digital disruption and transformation that's sort of a bit scary, right? And we can really take advantage of it and develop those digital capabilities and really take that digital advantage. So, for me, thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. I hope you find it useful in some way and learn something from all our research. We've been spending years and years and years. It's a truly fantastic world we live in, and there's much more coming. I'll be around for a bit if you have any questions. All my contact details are here. Don't hesitate to reach out. And again, thank you.
Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you, that was great. My personal favorite IOUT device is a connected water bottle, because you never know, you might forget to drink or something, so it reminds you when you might be feeling thirsty.
It'll text you?
It'll text you, exactly, yeah.
We can have a sensor.
But we have time for questions. Do we have any questions in the audience for Annika? Any questions in the audience? I have one. If you do, I'll get back to you in a minute. I have one question for you. So, I'm sure you work with a lot of companies. You see a lot of companies, some are which really forerunners, really sort of upgrading, really well, and some perhaps lacking behind. What are the main differences that you see in the ones that are really adopting all of this that you're talking about versus, the ones that are lagging behind in maybe mindset and culture? Things like that.
I mean, it's mindset, I would say. And it's to some extent what I was talking about. It's not the interior of the office or where you use beanbags or not, but it's about transforming the way we think.
Yeah.
And where we see IT being an integral part of the line of business and partnering is where we see the quickest change. I think that's the main call out.
Exactly. Mindset. Perfect. Any other questions still? If not, Annika will be around. You can grab her after. Oh, we do have a question? Did we? Yes? Great.
If no one else goes, I'll use the opportunity. Niina Hyvärinen, F-Secure. Really inspiring talk, and I really liked your examples of digital disruption and what is happening and how we all have to be really kind of vigilant and looking at the around and the environment. My question is more like to how we balance. You mentioned that you also have your background in cybersecurity, and there's a value that these digital devices like this smart toaster brings. But how do you see the balance between getting very connected with everything and then safeguarding your identity and cybersecurity? Thank you.
Okay, it's a great question. I mean, first of all, the internet of toasters, we're getting stuck in this one. It's not the best example, but it's really, really interesting from a security perspective as well. Because the more things we connect to the internet, the bigger the perimeter gets and the more vulnerable we are, which also means that we need to rethink security. Traditionally, we may be thinking about endpoint security, but how much antivirus does a toaster have, right? So we need to put, our vision is, right, and our strategy is that we need to put the security in the common denominator. And whether you are a toaster or an app or smartwatch or a vent system, you're all connected to the network. And that's where we see that we need to start thinking about this security being there, using the data, using behavioral analytics and so on to be able to foresee and, well, to some extent, when it happens, react quickly and stop it. Did that answer your question? Do you want a toaster?
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause to Annika Gruvstad. Thank you very much. Thank you. Fantastic.